Can we ever sign someone at a normal time? Can anyone in baseball just sign at a normal time? Can we stop having these 12 a.m. signings? I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I was brushing my teeth. And all of a sudden, look at the phone. Baltimore Orioles signed Andrew Kittredge to a 1-year, $10 million deal. The right-handed reliever, 34-year-old, coming to Baltimore after a year in St. Louis, his previous 7 in Tampa Bay. Wow. What I didn't see it coming. It wasn't one of those moves where I had Andrew Kittredge on my radar. Really, when it comes to the reliever market, so many different teams are looking for so many different things. And man, was this didn't expect it, but I like it. And Jordan, hey man, sorry about your Penn State Nittany Lions. Tough one, incredible season. I thought they had it. I had the under in that game, so that was a tough loss as well. But appreciate you joining us after that. Yeah, great pickup, best this offseason. Honestly, it could be. It could be this is let's look a little bit deeper. We're going to do this thing where we all kind of look at this together. So immediately, let's go to the Baseball Savant page. And first thing we're looking at is the percentiles. And really good chase percentage. He's getting 38.9% chases. Whiffs are decent. You see not a lot of walks. He's sitting there 66. Big thing this year is you're going to see, I like the ground ball percentage. Let's go back to 2023 a little bit. See, he not a full year where he qualified. But for the most part, he's going to get a lot of chases, not a lot of walks, which has really kind of been something that I feel like the Orioles, let me make sure it sits on 2024 just while people are coming in. This is one of those guys where it seems like a prototypical Orioles signing over the past few years, over even when it takes it to waiver claims and stuff. Extension, ground ball percentage. That's the big thing. Is the Orioles recently they like guys who don't walk people, and they like guys who give up ground balls. If you get ground balls and you're not walking a lot of people, the Baltimore Orioles are most likely interested in you. Seeing solid pitch mix too. Yeah, so he's got the slider, sinker, 4-seam cutter all working together. And listen, do you have any other pitches? No, so he added the cutter last season. Listen, this is one of those signings that we're going to look at, and right now it's not going to knock your socks off. It's not going to – you're not all of a sudden saying the Baltimore Orioles are World Series favorites because of this move. It's not the flashy move, but when it comes to this offseason, when it comes to these moves, I've talked about it. I understand the big move people are still holding out on, people are still waiting for. When you look at these moves in a vacuum, the Baltimore Orioles got better today. Yeah, it's looking like that cutter is not. He only threw it 1%. I'm seeing people talk about it looking at it, he only threw it 1%. Let me see, is he threw it any other? Yeah, so it's not going to be, that cutter was definitely a misread. So yeah, maybe he works on the cutter, maybe he throws it one time. Ryan, appreciate you. We're just up late on Baseball Savant talking about the Orioles. But back to the main point, the Baltimore Orioles got better today. This is a guy that you can rely on in that middle relief, that 6th, 7th inning. Ryan saying it's a good move. I agree. I think this is a move that, like I was saying, are we all of a sudden, is everyone rushing to the booth to buy your Baltimore Orioles World Series tickets? No. But did the Baltimore Orioles get better today? Is this a step in the right direction to build a solid team Yeah, without a doubt. And joining in on the fun, joining me on Kevin and Zach Reacts is my co-host, Kevin Ostreicher. Kevin, another late night signing. I said to start this off, can we ever have a signing at like a normal hour?
I am so serious. What the hell is this team's problem?
They
Like
just
I am legitimate. Like I am so serious. Can these guys make a move before the hour of like 10 p.m.?
no.
Like they're like, this is my schedule, and even I'm mad about it. I mean, not the
Yeah.
move. The move is fine, but like I was just talking to my friend. We call him Ox, and he texted me. He's like, "What's a 1 year deal?" Because the title you put says signs to a
Yeah.
1 year deal. I fixed it, but it's okay. I
Yeah.
mean, man,
I'm not gonna lie. I put that and I saw that they were talking in the comments. I was like, damn. I was like, that's on
you know
me.
what? Hey, nothing's
It's late,
perfect.
Kevin. It's
It,
late.
it is it is late, and it's ridiculous that it's late because this is a disservice because we could be talking on here when everybody can talk about it, but when the Orioles have made their moves, I don't think we've had one normal reaction stream this offseason.
No, the
Not one.
only one that you could have considered was a normal time was they made the Tyler O'Neill signing at like 8 p.m. But it was the one day me and you were both somewhere else. We were both out. We just couldn't do it. And then later that night at like 11:30, they signed Gary Sanchez. And then we're like, we have to.
They're gonna trade for Castillo at like 2 a.m.
It's probably gonna be tonight at like 4 a.m.
It's and it always coincides with like my busiest nights
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, that's why
So
I texted you and I was like, yo, I was like, are you able
I mean,
to?
we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. Like
Yeah,
we're gonna
exactly.
do it.
We're gonna react. We're gonna react.
So
So, Kevin,
oh
as I
yeah,
was saying,
rant over. Let's get
yeah,
into the
as I was saying before you hopped on, I think this is a solid move that the Orioles got better. I think this is a very, very, very nice bullpen piece. It's a veteran, gets ground balls, gets good chases, doesn't walk a lot of guys. But it's another move where I think the Orioles, in a vacuum, because I said before, I know they haven't gotten that big star everyone wants, that big, move that they feel like really moves the needle. The Orioles are building a pretty solid squad. The Orioles are building a pretty solid squad.
Yeah, I mean, this to me, it's an upgrade in the bullpen. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, again, this is not a Tanner Scott. It's not one of the big names. I know I've seen people call the Orioles a retirement home, which I think is kind of funny, but I don't see this as a bad move. I mean, I get that it's not like the splash. I still hope that they make a splash, and the offseason will still be a disappointment if they don't make a splash. But what you can hope is these are just little moves before the big one. And I think for a guy like this, who you know is going to be out there for you, what was it, 74 appearances
Yeah,
last
74
season, right?
appearances, 70 innings.
That to me, you have Cano who had 70. You have another guy now who has 70. I know last year a lot of the conversation was, man, the Orioles are losing all these pieces, not just from the starting staff, but they had a bunch of bullpen guys miss a couple weeks here, month here, a couple months here. I mean, we talk about Danny Coulomb and how he was so effective for the Orioles when he was on the mound when he missed a chunk of the year. So
Mm-hmm.
I think durability and dependability is going to be huge. Obviously, again, 34. You hope that you don't have to overwork a guy like this. That's the thing to me. Pitch an inning, he's not a long guy for you. But I think
Yeah.
now that you have a bunch of really solid options, and obviously Bautista coming back, Cano, you have Dominguez. If Soto can continue his strong end to the year, now that you add another bullpen arm, I would still like to see one more.
Mm-hmm.
But now that they have kind of made their first bullpen move, this honestly to me might be my favorite move they've made this offseason. Just
Kevin, a lot of people in the chat were saying that to start.
yeah. So look at me on board with the chat.
Yeah, look at that. But I agree, Kevin. I think this is a very, very, very solid move that just helps shore up the bullpen. And Kevin, what if we talked about if you're not going to have a dominant rotation, we talked about previous years, previous teams, not specifically the Orioles, but previous teams that have done well, it's a solid bullpen. It's can you get the lead and keep it? Kevin, how many times did it feel like last year the Orioles would claw back into a game and in the 7th, 8th inning, they'd get the big hit and they'd go and tie it. They'd go tie it. They'd take a 1-run lead. And then the next inning, the bullpen gives up 2, and suddenly all momentum's gone. You lose the game. It felt like, especially towards the end of the year, it was a common, they would get the lead. Oh, boom. The bats finally wake up. They do something. Bullpen can't have that shutdown inning. Hell, the playoffs. Cedric Mullins hits the game-tying homer. They get bases loaded. They can't get anything out of it. You're thinking they got to get a shutdown inning here. If they get a shutdown inning here, they have the momentum. They give up a run to Kansas City. That was all she wrote. The season was over. This is where you want guys like this who you can go out there and you can depend on to go get solid outs, to get you 3 outs when you need it, to come in and pitch 74 games. That's a lot. You're almost pitching every other day. I love the Jacob Webb comparison that people are saying, it's the upgrade over Webb, because I agree. I think this is an upgrade over Webb, and he just fills that position.
I agree. I think it is an upgrade over Webb. And I see a lot of people in the chat talking about the lefty issue in the bullpen, which I do agree with. I think that they do need a lefty, at least
they do. One. They still do. They need a
lefty. They understand that, they know that they do. It'd be pretty bad if they didn't come into the year with a lefty on their roster to go pitch out of the bullpen. But you're right. If they don't have,
don't see now. It's just you two go do it.
Right. Yeah. That's tough. They need another one. So I would say that this is a good step. It's small stepping stones, essentially, is what this is. You hope the big move is coming, but it's kind of what we talked about when the Orioles signed Morton. It's like, if this is what the rotation is going to be, then you're exactly right. You just said it. You're going to have to get some level of a shutdown bullpen. And the only issue with that is, if you're here, we have a cat appearance. Myra's making her second ever appearance.
This is the stuff people come to Kevin and Zach React for.
I know. Look at this.
Hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoy the content and the cat.
Yes, Banksy's turned into the old man of the house. Myra keeps him
young.
Keeps him young. They've learned to like each other. So she's a lot more. She'll just sit here and let me wave, and Banksy's like, get off of me, do not.
Yeah. Banksy did not like when he was coming on.
Yeah, he'll come back. He'll come back.
Yeah, he'll make his. But
with Kevin, 4 legs, by the way.
All 4 legs. All 4 legs. Remember that. Kevin, I saw some people in the comments talking about, another veteran is this. Was the Orioles, plan this year to just go after veterans? And yeah, I'm going to say it. I think so. Would it have been nice to see, they go out and get one of these big stars that's more in their, late 20s, early 30s that you feel like is that, okay, that's the big move. Yeah, Castillo could still be that move. But I think the Orioles genuinely wanted veterans. This is a very young team still. And I saw before talking about, is this just a bunch of 1-year stopgaps, veterans, what's the vision? The vision is you have to build around this young core. You have to fill in the spots, the little gaps here and there, because at the end of the day, this young core, the Orioles can make moves here and there, but this team is going to go as far as this young core goes. They can go make all the, get Castillo, go hell, bring Burns back, whatever it would have been. But if Gunnar doesn't show up, Adley doesn't show up, Jackson doesn't show up, Westy doesn't show up, if those guys don't show up, it doesn't matter. The one piece is here or there. So what the Orioles hope is you get these veterans. Like before, everyone talks about what was different in 2023, Kevin. We said it all last year. It was Kyle Gibson was that incredible veteran for that pitching staff. You had Adam Frazier, Aaron Hicks as veterans for the fielders. It felt like there was just some really strong leaders in that clubhouse that it sort of started lacking a little bit last year. You didn't feel that way. So I think that's why Charlie Morton was brought in. Kittredge is more, I think, just a good signing. He's a veteran he's been there, done that, 8 years in the league. You get Morton, who kind of can help these young guys. I think they did go for veterans. I think that was the strategy to help this young team and grow and improve.
Yeah, and from the other side of that, just so we have both perspectives on it, because I know there are people that feel this way as well. I agree. Like, they needed more vets. It was the worst kept secret in Baltimore last year was the team was way too young, and they needed to have more options when it came to guys being able to lead and having been there, done that, like you said. I just don't want it to be a situation where they overcorrect, where I don't think it's a problem of, like, you can never have enough vet leadership. Like, don't get me wrong. Vets in the locker room, unless they're toxic, which the Orioles, I don't think have signed any toxic personalities or anything like that, at least not to my knowledge. It's fine. It's good. But I think when you talk about the nature of their signings, obviously O'Neill was the 3-year deal, but he does have the opt-out, and then a bunch of 1-year deals around that. If you're not making any other moves besides that, you're, regardless of how good or bad your year is this upcoming season, your roster is essentially going to be in the same place, if not a worse place, with all these guys either retiring or leaving. And I just think that it would make me feel better about the offseason as a whole. I'd even concede the splash move here, which is big because I know we've both talked about that, but I would concede the splash move if they make a medium splash move. Big splash to medium splash, because I just don't think. Well, go ahead.
What's a medium splash for you? Like,
medium splash.
Like, because
a good lefty reliever, or
Tanner Scott,
or even just I can't see, the issue is I can't see them signing another starter. So I don't that's out of the question. So I will say, like, a Tanner Scott, like a medium splash move, multi-year deal, because if you go into the 2026 offseason with essentially all these 1-year deals expiring, plus Tyler O'Neill potentially opting out, plus what, said he's a free agent after this year, right? So
yeah, and I think that's where it is that balance of, okay, where do you stand on veterans? And I think that's why you're good with. That's why I think I'm not considering Kittredge as like was brought in to be a veteran. I think he was brought in to be, one of your 7th, 8th inning guys. Someone that you can rely on.
Well, and it also can be both. It also can be both.
It can be both. I think Morton is more of a guy that you're hoping can be, whatever he gives you on the field is kind of extra type deal. I think that was more for him. I think he can be solid, but I think you're also just using him as kind of that leader in the clubhouse type deal.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. You can't overdo it with veterans. You can't turn this whole team into where you're giving up spots for where young guys could grow, could, get opportunities, and kind of, stopping them, taking away time. But I think, at where they stand, I'm gonna say so far, I think they've done a very good job at it. Now, if they add like 2 to 3 more guys where you're only really saying, hey, they're a good veteran, then I'm sitting here going, okay, this is enough. Like, we're done.
And my point is just that when you talk about essentially restarting the 2025 offseason in 2026, meaning I don't think that you should make all your medium and big splash moves in one offseason, where if they're trying to say, hey, we're going out there and we have a bunch of 1-year deals we're signing this year, a bunch of vet options, we think these guys can contribute, be veteran leaders, I don't oppose that mindset. I think that's a fine mindset to have. But if that's the only thing you're doing, and not also saying, hey, we're going to build out our roster for the next couple of years every year, because at the end of the day for Baltimore, let's say that next year Kittredge and Morton and Sanchez and everybody, Sagano, they're all gone. Now you're right back where we were a couple months ago, where, they now need 2 starters, or, and at that point, Bradish will be back and Wells and whatever, and we can talk about it. But it's like you need a new backup catcher again, and you need more bullpen help again, and you need this again. So I'm saying that, in my opinion, I don't think that you should go out there and get that all in one offseason. So I think a couple of, even if it's 2-year deals with
I agree.
those guys, just don't try to catch up next year because either you weren't able to get the guys this year or you didn't like the class or whatever it is. The Orioles have a shot to win a World Series this year.
Yeah.
And every year, it shouldn't just be about, it's always a multi-year step plan.
Mm-hmm.
But within that plan has to be a, hey, we're not just going to punt on here. Now, I'm not saying the Orioles are punting this year. I'm not trying to imply that. But again, you have to balance it out, 1-year deals or deals with opt-outs versus other guys who are going to be on the team for more than one season. So you're not right back here again next year. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I agree. You can't just rely on every single year. We'll figure out at the end of this year why, was it just this class they didn't like? Was it, whatever it may be? Did they just think that these were the right guys at this time to go for? And then they're going to start handing out more multi-year deals because, man, next year you're even talking about Zach Eflin's deals up, so now you're making a decision there. There's another starter that you have to make.
Do we know their free agency class for next year? Orioles.
Yeah, I can pull up the
because that actually would be a very interesting to kind of go along with what we're talking about. Oh, Dylan Tate, who is not on the team anymore, is a free agent in 2026. Look at that. Where are Orioles 2026 free agents? Spotrac does a good job. Let's use Spotrac here. Okay. 2026, all positions. Tyler Nails the opt-out. Morton, Eflin, Sagano, Mullins, Sanchez, Soto, Dominguez, O'Hearn, and Mateo. So if they only give out 1-year deals.
A lot of talent.
Yeah, if they only give out 1-year deals here, you essentially need, I'll call it 2 starting pitchers because I'm going to assume Bradish comes back and we can factor in Wells as well. You're going to need potentially 1 to 2 outfielders, maybe a new DH, utility guy, outfielder. Mm-hmm. So that to me is where, like, if you can even address 1 or 2 of those this offseason and say, hey, we like this guy, let's bring him in for 2 years.
Yeah.
Just to have the guy there. Because then if you don't do that in 2026, you're stuck with a lot of decisions and a lot of new guys coming into the clubhouse, where I just think it's good to have some level of continuity. Ideally, the continuity comes from your young core and you build around that, and those guys are flexible if you can go in and out with all of them and whatnot. But still, it'd be nice to have a couple of multi-year deals here once the offseason's all said and done. And by the way, it's not all done yet, so still have to wait.
Yeah, I think the next move, honestly, if we're going to talk about signings, I think they make a move in the trade market. I think that's where their next big move is. But I think the next signing we see, I would not be surprised if it's an Adley extension. I think he's the guy that gets done this year. I've seen people in the chat talk about we need to start extending these guys. I agree. I think it starts with Adley. If you ask me who should it be signed first and foremost, I'd say Gunnar every single day. But unfortunately, Gunnar is a Scott Boras client, and that's not going to happen unless Gunnar Henderson tells Scott to his face that he wants to remain here, that he wants to sign an extension here. Scott's not going to go out of his way to be like, hey, here, you can get him for this deal. Scott wants to wait this out and get the big money. So I think Adley's the first guy that we see that domino go down for. But I think that could kind of be the big quote unquote multi-year thing is, wrapping him up. There are just not a lot of guys right now, free agency wise, that I'm sitting there thinking this is guy's worth the multi-year deal. That's why I think a guy like, and let's look at this class. This is why, Kevin, this is why it scares me if the Orioles trade for Dylan Cease, because now that's another 1-year deal you're giving up prospects for, and then you'd be sitting there, and now you'd have Cease, Morton, Eflin, Sagano gone. That's 4 of your 5 guys of your rotation would all be gone. So that's my worry for a Cease deal is you would have to extend him. I think that's why a Castillo makes sense. But
because you just don't want to get burned like you did from Corbin. And obviously, Corbin, I think, was a very unique circumstance where if the whole family thing didn't have as much of a bearing on where Corbin went, I think he would have a pretty good shot to re-sign with the Orioles. But that's just not what it was. And, Dylan Cease could have a different reason for either re-signing or not with the team he plays for next season. But I just don't know, because you want to wait it out for the right guy. You don't just want to make a move to make a move, obviously. Like, if you're making a move because you feel pressure or whatnot, that's not the right way to go about it. You make a move because you feel like the guy is right for your team. And if that guy comes next year and the big ace move is next season, then that's fine. But you have to have other options, whether it be guys already on your roster that are going to be here for long term. Because ideally, the Orioles re-sign Zach Eflin if he has another good year. Like, that is ideal for them. But we don't know if that's going to be the case.
Guys like, Chase McDermott and Cade Povich step up, and you are comfortable letting Horton walk, letting someone else walk, maybe a Sagano at the end of the year, whatever it may be. But that's where it becomes, if you're not going to get this big time pitcher for multi-years, you can't sit there and do the 1 year band-aids hoping that, Povich is going to figure it out. Povich is going to put it together. McDermott's going to put it together. Young's going to put it together. You need some sort of stability, like you're saying, Kevin. And that's where, you look at the 2026 free agents, that's not a lot of, you're not sitting there going, okay, we're feeling, if you lose these guys, you're feeling good sitting here 2026.
And you would feel better about it if you had a guy or two on multi-year deals where you could say, okay, that's a tough loss, but at least you have X who is now there. And that could come in the form of young guys stepping up, right? It definitely could. But you don't want to, because I agree with you, with relying on young guys, there are always going to be players that hit. There are, there are always going to be, but there are also always going to be players that miss. You're never going to go 100% on guys stepping up and becoming great major league players or great contributors to your team. You always have to put in that margin for error of, hey, maybe 3 of these guys don't work out, but 5 of them do. Or maybe 7 of them work out, but 2 of them don't. There are always going to be those guys that don't work out, and you need to have backup plans. Again, we still have time before the season starts. And the Orioles seem to be making moves to fill out their roster, but at the same time, it's becoming pretty crowded when you talk about how balanced out this is going to be vet-wise versus young guy-wise. Because we talked about the rotation when Charlie Morton signed. It's like, okay, what does this mean for a guy like a Cade Povich or a Trevor Rogers or Chase McDermott in the bullpen? If they get another lefty in there, who's the odd man out? Who would that be? So it's interesting because I think the Orioles are in terms of quantity, they've made moves. And honestly, I don't hate the quality of them either. It's not the big splash, and they've lost a guy who was one of the biggest splashes of the entire class and are on the verge of losing another guy who we dubbed many times Zach the heart and soul of the team. So that just turns into a tough offseason all the way around. Unless they make a splash move, the harsh reality is the roster itself going into the year is not going to be as good as it was last season. And, we can be objective about that.
Kevin, is the Orioles, after this $10 million you add, their projected payroll is $158 million. In 2023, it was $66 million. Last year it was 103.
Money is being spent. Regardless if you like the way it's being spent or not.
Money's being spent. I think people were begging for money to be spent. Now people are begging that it's not being spent right. It's nice to see money being spent, but at the same time, you're not, if how much money, I think it's up to over like $60 million this season have been spent. When it comes to going into next year, I'm sure people would have liked to have had, lose half the guys that we've spent it on and use 30 million of that to get Corbin Burns, So I know the people aren't always going to agree with the money that's being spent, but it's being spent. There's money is being spent. It's whether or not that, like you talked about, Kevin, you need to start translating it into multi-year deals, because if you just plan on it being every single year, we're bringing in 7, 8 1-year deals, it's going to catch up to you really fast. And this is how you could end up with, like, the Orioles could be facing next year, where you're looking at it going, okay, there's a lot of holes suddenly on this roster.
Right.
Because of people leaving in free agency.
Yeah. And again, we've talked about this, Zach, and I think summing it all up is that the Orioles set an expectation with Corbin Burnes. In reality, the Orioles are not going to get a Corbin Burnes level player every single season. We can also say that. I mean, this isn't the Dodgers. It's not the Yankees, right? Obviously, there's a lot of differences in the way that big market, medium market, and small market teams spend money. But the Corbin move, I think, for a lot of people was this is what it's going to be from now on. Again, they're never going to get a star player like Corbin every single offseason. It's just not possible. But I think the disappointment for a lot of people, and this does not even go with the Kittredge thing. Like, we're just talking general now.
Yeah.
But it comes with the fact that you've seen teams like Boston improve. New York lost Soto, but pivoted pretty quickly. The Rays and Blue Jays really haven't done much of anything so far now. But that's not the point. I mean, the big three here is supposed to be the Orioles, Yankees, and Red Sox.
The Rays are going to walk out there on opening day with 26 guys, 17 of which you've never heard of before, and they're going to win 94 games. It's what the Rays do. So that's why I can never sit here and say, hey, the Rays haven't done anything this year, because they never do anything, and then they just somehow create like there are going to be 7 guys. Like, somehow, I don't know how it happens, the Rays starting rotation every year, somehow like 7 guys have Tommy John surgery. And then you're like, well, this has got to be the one that ruins it. And then they just bring up another guy who has like a 2.8 ERA. You're like, where do you find these people?
Yeah, I'm telling you, Matt Horvath is going to be like the greatest player in MLB history over there.
And then, oh my gosh, yeah, they're going to be. It's going to be.
They just have a way to do it. Maybe this is a good time to announce, Zach. You and I are the 2 new bullpen pitchers for the Tampa Bay Rays. We're about to have two 2-1 ERA
and ready.
Hey, first pitch down the middle of the gunner, meatball. We're inside. We're inside agents. We're inside agents. We just serve up meatballs.
I'll get them to pop it up.
Man, yeah. But I think in the bullpen, because what's the projected bullpen now? It's Batista, Kittredge, Dominguez, Soto.
The shout out to Orioles Statistics on Twitter. He put it up. So let's just kind of current rankings. Let's just go over guys. Bautista, Dominguez, Kittredge, Cano, Soto, Aiken, Perez are 1 through 7. And then 8's going to be your AAA guys that are coming up. Do you put Suarez back in? That's where you're going to get that 8th guy is going to be always a rotation. But Kevin, we talked about we'd like to see a lefty. A bullpen of Bautista, Dominguez, Kittredge, Cano, Soto, Aiken, and Perez is not a bad start. That's not a bad
start. Not a bad
bullpen at all. And I think that's what, we're kind of getting at is the Orioles are looking, we are still waiting for that one move. We're still waiting for that one move, but in a vacuum, I like the moves that they've made. I know people want to call it bargain, shopping and stuff. The Orioles are filling holes. They're filling holes on the roster that they needed to fill. It sucks losing Corbin Burnes. It sucks that they're going to lose Anthony Santander. I don't think losing Anthony Santander is going to be as big of a hit as people think, especially if Kerstead and O'Neill, do their thing. But I think the Orioles have gotten made very solid moves that if they can make that one big move, it sets them up very, very well. And over here, Aaron, appreciate it. Waiting on Sasaki before we trade for these. Yeah, So the entire league, I believe, is waiting for Roki Sasaki to make his decision. He's making it on January 15th. So we're about 5 days away now that it is 1:16 in the morning on January 10th. We're 5 days away. So Sasaki's going to make his decision on the 15th. And I think within a week, we're going to see one, maybe two pitchers traded. Really hope that Sasaki goes to the Mariners so that they're more willing to trade. But I could also see him, the Dodgers are always going to have their being on those type of guys. I know that they've had like 2 meetings with him already. So it's going to be West Coast. It's just I hope it can help free up the trade market for the Orioles.
Yeah, and that sometimes is what it is. And plus, teams just don't know what direction they're going to go in, which I think why from Milwaukee, they were like, yeah, we're going to move off of Corbin. He only has 1 year left on his deal. We want to get some value for him. They probably knew he wasn't going to re-sign there. And we're just like, hey, this is one of the best pitchers in baseball. We know we can get something. And they got a decent package. I mean, a really good package from the Orioles. So if a team doesn't know what direction they're going in the offseason, they're more willing to say, hey, we'll give you this guy or we'll give you that guy because we don't really think we're going to do much this season. But then you see it all the time in baseball and honestly all sports where all of a sudden a team that thought they were going to go have a 70-win season all of a sudden is on pace for 95 and like they're waiting, well, yeah, we're not going to trade you anybody now. We want your guys now. Like that's how it goes. So the offseason, I think, is a better time to make a move like this, especially because you have the full season with that guy. Trade deadline prices go up because you're competing with more teams. And we've talked about this. If Corbin was acquired by Baltimore at the trade deadline, it would have cost them one of maybe Basayo, Jackson, Heston, Mayo. One or multiple of those guys would have had to be in that package because you'd be bidding against a ton of different teams who are even more desperate for that help. So this is the time for me to make the move. Trade deadline is fun. It's great. That's always electric and exciting.
You're going to overpay. You're going to overpay. Yeah, the Orioles gave up more for Trevor Rogers than they did for Corbin Burns.
With Norby Stowers?
Yeah, I think I guess Norby and Ortiz kind of X each other. I guess you gave up a little bit more for Corbin because
I think a little more for Corbin. I know what you're saying, though. I know what you're saying.
But I would say very comparable. That but that's just that's not what you would have gotten Rogers. For
no,
Corbin.
You would have gotten Rogers for you and me at the in the offseason. Like that's just it. I mean, Kikuchi went for what was it, 2, 6, and 7 or something or whatever it was from Houston, and Tanner Scott got that huge hole.
The Orioles got Eflin at the perfect time.
That to me, because that started the market. Yeah. Or did Kikuchi start the market and then it was Eflin, or was it Eflin then Kikuchi? Do you remember?
Eflin, because then Kikuchi signed later.
Right. Yeah. So that was the market starter.
Yeah. And Russell, I know I do not see the Orioles.
I don't see it. I know there have been reports of like mystery teams.
Mystery team. I don't think the O's are that mystery team, unfortunately. I think the mystery team's the Mariners. Yeah,
you just don't want to push it down the line too far. Like I understand if like the offseason didn't go the way that they expected, and
I want to know if they happened thought that they were going to get Burns, because I just don't see them.
If you thought the Orioles thought they were going to get him back.
Yeah,
I'm sure they were aware.
There's just no way.
I just don't want that, because have we gotten an official number of what they offered? I don't know.
I don't think we ever will either.
Yeah, but so I'm just saying, like, I just wouldn't want that to have detracted from what they actually tried to offer him at the time. And again, we'll probably never know how that all went down. But when you have an opportunity to have a guy like that. And again, they made the move hoping that they could convince him to stay. That was it. If they were trying to sign Corbin, let's say he stayed in Milwaukee. If they were trying to sign Corbin as a free agent who was in Milwaukee, there was literally zero chance that he would come to Baltimore. They made the move with the hope that they could convince him to re-sign after having a full year with the club. And it's disappointing. It's upsetting. Their rotation, they don't have the luxury the cushion of having a Corbin there. And yeah, August was rough, but other than that, he was one of the best pitchers in the entire sport last season. So this season comes down to the young core. I mean, I know you said it. I know I've said it. I know everybody said it. It's just the moves around the young core have to matter. And I kind of, if you didn't know, I'm a Denver Nuggets fan. Crazy, right? I know. First time ever saying it, as always. But the Nuggets won the championship. You know, they brought in a bunch of awesome vets that year. They traded for Contavious Caldwell-Pope, who they needed 3-point shooting. They brought him in. They needed defenders. They brought in a defender. They built their roster out around their stars and their youngish. That's not as young as the Orioles core, but their youngish core, and that's how they won the championship. And when you have something like that, obviously the next move is, keep doing that. But the Nuggets have moved away from that. They've gone all youth, too much youth, and it has kind of tanked their roster. They haven't been willing to re-sign guys, and they've let them walk for other money. So the way I'm rating,
hit on the youth.
So, and that's exactly it. Like, you have to hit on youth when you're in that situation, but sometimes you can overcorrect it too much in either direction, where it's too many vets on one-year deals, because they've done that before, the Nuggets have, and sometimes too much youth. And I think we saw it last year with the Orioles. I'm just trying to make a comparison. People don't like my Ravens comparisons. People don't like my Nuggets comparisons. One day I will get people on my side with my comparisons.
One day, Kevin. One day. And I appreciate
Thank you, Tommy.
Trade for the Reds pitchers. I would love to trade for Hunter Green. I don't think the Reds would do that, but God, would I love his strikeout stuff. Just absolutely incredible. I saw another talk about who is going to be the Orioles DH to be this upcoming season. I think it is going to be Heston. I think you're going to see a rotation. You're going to obviously see Heston in it some. You're going to see Mountcastle in it some. You're going to see O'Hearn in it some. Probably Gary Sanchez every once in a while, or Adley will do it.
Get some run there.
Yeah, Kobe's going to get some run. I think it's going to be
It's going to be like a six-man platoon.
Yeah, the Orioles will not have a designated, DH. There's not going to be one guy that they're like, hey, you're only DHing. That's just not really what the Orioles' philosophy is. They're one of those teams, as we know, because we complain about, they're going to play you everywhere. You're not going to just play. The only guys that get to play one position are Cedric Mullins and Gunnar Henderson.
Let's get ready for Jorge Mateo outfield reps. Zach's favorite thing.
It was that, and then it was the next game we had Ryan O'Hearn in left field. Like, not right. It's one thing when he's in right, you have the short, like, whatever. He was covering Baltimore in left field. I was like, you have got to be kidding me.
It's my favorite. Oh my God, I do want to see.
Off at like 1:24 in the morning, thinking about when the Orioles have that random. Oh my God, it's going to happen this year too. They're going to just try. That's why
I cannot wait for the Austin Slater White Sox revenge game on the Orioles, and we react to that.
Austin Slater hits a walk-off on us, it's okay. He deserves it.
You would have given him that power for all.
Yeah, like I couldn't even be mad. I would go in his DMs and send him the link to the post game. I'd be like, "Come talk your shit, bro. Like, come talk your shit."
That would be. We still have to find an Oriole to do that, like once every 5 months. One random game. Get an Oriole in here to do that with us. Maddox asking why I'm a Nuggets fan. When I was 7, I wanted a favorite basketball team. All my friends liked the Wizards, and I wanted to be different. So I ended up saying I like the Nuggets name, and have stayed loyal ever since. And I got rewarded with a championship. So I am set for life with that. But I'd like to see an Orioles championship. I've seen Ravens. I've seen Nuggets. The last thing I need, my favorite hockey team is the Anaheim Ducks for the same reason. I've seen a championship there. I'm just missing the Orioles. The Orioles have to complete.
Anaheim Ducks fan?
Because in NHL, I used to have the Game Boy, and I used to play on the Game Boy, and it was always Anaheim was the first team that you could pick. And so I'm just like, because my favorite soccer team, this is very controversial, but I'm an Arsenal fan because in FIFA, the first team that popped up was Arsenal, and I would always play with like Henry and all those guys, and that's how look. Baltimore set me up with the 2 teams that were here. The other teams, I went off the walls to find my favorite teams. So, and yes, Mike, this, if you've gotten to know me over the course of Locked On Ravens or this or anything, this is definitely on brand for who I am.
Gosh.
Oh, don't you miss this? Can't you not wait for us to be doing this every day again? We just mess around.
This is feeling very much like a loss. Although after losses, sometimes the get the vibes back up streams are just.
Yeah, I thought we did a pretty good job of that last season.
Yeah, we were also.
Oh yeah,
getting hyped too.
Yeah.
Kevin, any final thoughts before we hop out here? 1:26 in the morning. Not our latest. We had the two. What was the?
We were at 3:15 once. I think the Corbin stream hit like 3:15
because Corbin he signed at what, like 1:15? Because I think we went live at 1:45.
Yeah, that was like, I complained that this deal was late. That Corbin thing was late.
Yeah. And Mike, we agree. I think,
don't apologize.
Yeah, this is where we want people to come.
This is where you're supposed to vent your emotions, whether you're happy, sad, angry, whatever it is.
Yeah,
obviously within reason, which you do.
Yes, please do. Don't yell at people. Don't be mean. But no, I like this. It is worrisome about nothing but 1 year deals so far, because we're going to be right back to where we were, next year. So,
yeah, I just, in times like this, I do like to remind myself with all the teams that I cover, root for, whatever it is, that the off season is not over yet. We can judge moves and judge them in a vacuum, and I've kind of had to adopt this. I was not this way for a while, but you have to kind of take it with a grain of salt until you see the entire picture. And if the entire picture is this, then yeah, we're going to talk about it and have some words about it. But I just think assessing each move as it is and saying, hey, there's still time to do X, Y, Z. That's kind of how I've approached things, because I've overreacted to stuff. I've underreacted to stuff. And then all of a sudden it becomes the reality. And you're like, oh, okay, well, and then other times they do make the big move. I mean, where would the Orioles have been last year if they didn't make that move for Corbin? Nobody was expecting that to happen. And then we assessed it with that in the offseason, because that was the offseason. So just that's what I try to do in these situations.
Yeah. Kevin, let's end on our current AL East. What you think? And this is going off of this team at this second.
Right now, man, I personally have liked what the Red Sox have done this offseason.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest and say the Orioles are a worse team than they were last year. Mm-hmm. And depending on how the Yankees can recover from losing Soto, if the Red Sox moves can be enough, I'm going to go bold. I'm going to say it's a 2-win difference right now. It's Red Sox, Orioles, Yankees, and then whatever the hell you want to do with Toronto and Tampa. I don't care. But those are my top 3 right now.
Yeah, no, that's my top 3. I'm going to say at this second, Orioles finish 3 games total behind. Somewhere it's a 3-game difference between them, Red Sox, and Yankees. I think this team is deeper than last year. I think the stars up top, when you talk about Corbin, when you talk about a guy like Tony, obviously you don't have that. But I think overall, when we talk about depth aspect, I think this team has a lot of depth. But, Kevin, I don't think any move that they could make, unless they somehow end up with Sandy Alcantara, you go get me Sandy Alcantara from Miami, then we're talking. But unless they get a big ace move, listen, even if they do, we've said it before, the Orioles can win 100. They won 101 games without Corbin. This team is really good. It is going to go as far as its young core takes it. If the pitchers come in, these 1-year deals, these veterans come in and do their jobs, and Gunnar goes and competes for an MVP, Westberg is an all-star again, Cowser takes that step, Adley looks like first half Adley, Grayson steps up and becomes that number 1. all of a sudden you're looking at this team. It's a damn good team, you know. Or you go out in the Orioles, hell, let's say they brought Corbin back. Hell, they brought in Max Fried. People would be losing their minds. This team's the best team ever. They're going to win 110 games. Then Adley doesn't do anything. Gunnar doesn't do anything. Westy doesn't do anything. They'd win 75 games. You know, this young core is what is going to make or break this Orioles team. So it's really nice to make these big splashy moves. And I still am begging for that top of the line starter. I think that's the icing on the cake. But even if you get that top of the line starter, my biggest thing is we need to see this year from Gunnar, Adley, Westy, Cowser, all those guys, Heston, they take that step. Jackson, Kobe, if all of them do what we think they can do, the depth pieces that they've added here and there are going to be the big difference that could hopefully put them over the top.
Nope, nothing further, Your Honor. That was perfectly put. I can't say it any better than that. I mean, if the young guys break out, the Orioles are going to go far this year. If there's a lot of disappointment there and they can't step up in the moment, then they're probably going to be in for a pretty disappointing season. So
exactly, you know, that's why I keep having to tell myself, like, they could bring in two insane players, and then this team does what they did last year in the second half, and it doesn't matter. Like, you know, the offense does that. So I'm not gonna be, you know, totally upset if this is the team that they go into on opening day. Would I like another big move? Please. You know, I would love, hell, like you said, Kevin, if at most you're giving us a Tanner Scott, you know, come and bring us a lefty out of the pen that we can just make this bullpen. I saw someone say a Steamer has the Orioles projected for the second best bullpen in all of baseball right now after this edition. So make a super dominant bullpen. The core's there. They're building around it. I would love that one big move. But if they don't get it, you know, this team is still going to go as far as these young guys take them. But Kevin, any final words?
Well, we know one person who's very high on the Orioles. That's Mr. Joe, 108.
And I heard Heston's win an MVP during the season.
He's won a World Series MVP at that rate. My God. Hey, if that's what happens, we'll have to come back and thank Joe for it. So,
Joe, if we win 108, you'll win a prize.
Yeah.
You'll win a prize.
Yeah, a food challenge for me within reason, which I have final say over, by the way. Which again, that's true.
This is not a bad rotation.
It's not bad. Not what it was. Not what it was. But we were talking about it last year.
Be a very good rotation if Grayson takes that step. Eflin does what he does. When I'm talking about a young core, I'm even including a Kramer. Kramer, if he does what he did the second half of last year, Kramer was one of the best pitchers in all of the American League last year in the second half. He does that. This is a solid rotation that can hold off before a Bradish comes back.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look like it. I don't get super excited by it, but like,
no,
it's not the worst rotation in baseball. It's disappointing based off what it looked like last year. I still think that they should have taken a different approach, but at the end of the day, they feel if this is what they feel confident with their bullpen in, if they make another bullpen move like we talked about, then you can kind of stave off some of the tough starts this rotation has. I don't think that's the best strategy, but if that's the strategy they're going with.
And this doesn't even include Albert Suarez. But here's the big thing is there's wild cards here. Grayson, if Grayson takes that step and becomes a number one, this rotation's looking pretty good. And the other guy, Sagano. He's the mystery. He is genuinely the mystery card that we don't know. Does he show up like a Shota Minaga last year, where Shota comes in, he goes to the Cubs, and he's leading the NL in ERA for almost the entire year? If we get that type of production from Sagano, where he comes in, he's having a below 3 ERA, then the rotation's looking better. Does anything jump off the screen to you on this rotation, Kevin? No. Nothing on this screen is making me go, this is a rotation that can win a World Series. but we're in January. Grayson takes that step. Sugano becomes better, what he's advertised as, coming over as one of the all-time greats over in Japan. Morton becomes that below 4 ERA guy. Suarez continues to be well. You get Bradish back. Eflin continues what he did last year. It can work. It can work. I would still like another top-end guy, but it can work.
Yeah, it can work. Will it work? We don't know yet.
We don't know. We got.
I think, much like you said, yes, it comes down to Grayson, in particular, health. Because when Grayson went down last year, or when he's gone down, I said when he has to miss time, when he went down last year, it was okay. Well, Corbin is still there. You still have a star stud ace in that rotation. If Grayson goes down this year, you don't have that cushion like I talked about. That's the risk. This is a risky year for the Orioles. It could pay off in the best way, or it could crash and burn in the worst way, right? I think both realities exist, and we're not going to know what it fully looks like until we're sitting here in hopefully November talking about a World Series win. But whenever the season ends, that's when we'll know how it worked out for them. But you're right. Nothing jumps off the page in this rotation. It's tough to look at it without Corbin's name in there, but this is the new reality.
Preach, Mike. Preach.
Yep. 100%. 100%.
I guess that, man. I don't think people genuinely understand how good Kyle Brash is when he is
so
on.
So underrated.
When he is on, he is a top. I will go out to say he's a top 5 pitcher in baseball. So I think that's going to do it.
I got Locked On Ravens that edit and other, man. They always do it on my busy days. Thursdays and Fridays are like the 2 days for me that are the busiest, and the Orioles just love to make moves on Thursdays and Fridays. Like I don't get it. I guess it's a me thing. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
they do it with me in mind.
Also, I agree real fast with this. This is a solid regular season rotation. Yeah, you want that guy for October. That's why you're hoping a guy like Bradish or a guy like Grayson can step up in those moments and be that ace in a moment like that. Love the depth for the regular season. Someone's got to step up in the postseason. It's as simple as that.
Sure. And Mike asking when the next episode of Locked On Ravens is. We go live. Well, not live. I'm not up that early at 6 a.m. But we have episodes every day, every Monday through Friday. I've been doing Locked On Ravens now since 2019. Tomorrow is going to be my 1,420th consecutive episode on weekdays, dating all the way back to 2019. I don't know if we've had this conversation. My first ever episode, Zach, was about Kari Vedvik, Blast from the Past. And,
wow, University, baby.
Yeah, man. Oh, I didn't even put that together, man. So yeah, Locked On Ravens is 5 days a week. We go live after all the Ravens games too. Obviously, we do that here over at Kevin Zach React as well. But
we'll be live on Saturday after the Ravens game.
Yeah.
On both. He'll be locked on, and then after we'll do this.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah. So appreciate you, Mike. Really appreciate you.
Yep. And so that's going to do it for this edition of Kevin and Zach React. The Orioles signed Andrew Kittredge to a 1-year deal to come out of the bullpen. Another late night signing for the Baltimore Orioles. But that's going to do it for this edition. Hit that like and subscribe button if you're new to the channel. We go live after every single Orioles and Ravens game, win or lose, any single signing, big news, whatever it may be, no matter the time. You guys have a fantastic night and happy Friday, I guess. Friday morning, as always. Chewies.